Welcome to Abridged, a podcast on everything Bracebridge, with your host, me, Mayor Rick Maloney. Well, welcome to Abridged. I am joined by a former colleague of mine. Scott and I were on Bracebridge Council together. Scott was a longtime district councillor, and you've been away from that for a while, but remarkably, just over 10 years now as the executive director for Muskoka Conservancy. Welcome.
Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to be here. This is my first time on the podcast. I hope the first of many.
Well, you know, when you come back a second and third time, there is a T-shirt.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, I can wear large or extra large. So,
there you go. Anyway, I just wanted to share a bit about Scott. You know, as I say, a long-time district councillor for the District of Muskoka, involved in many aspects, particularly when it comes to Muskoka and the environment and the importance of our environment. As the executive director for the last 10 plus years, you've really moved the needle with the Conservancy, more staff, more programs, more land acquisition. We'll get into that, but I just wanted to, first of all, share my thanks for your involvement with Muskoka Conservancy and the importance that Muskoka Conservancy has for our community in terms of ensuring that land is protected for not just today, but for the future.
Thanks, Rick. I'd also like to kind of turn that back to you. Having been a public servant in the form of an elected municipal councillor, I know that is work. It's hard work, sometimes thankless work, and you've been in it, dedicated to it for a long time at various levels, and I congratulate you for your involvement and your continued dedication to our town. And to Muskoka. So thanks back to you.
Oh, appreciate that. Now that we've done the Scott and Rick love in, let's turn to the Conservancy.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about, first of all, for folks that may not be familiar with the Muskoka Conservancy, what is it?
Well, we're the Nature Conservancy of Muskoka. So a lot of people out there are maybe familiar with the Nature Conservancy of Canada, and what they do. And if you think about them, they've got an amazing marketing machine. So lots of people have heard about them. And you'll hear that maybe they've protected like a 10,000 hectare plot of land on the side of the Rocky Mountains, or a gigantic part of the boreal forest up in northern Canada. Fact is, we do the exact same thing as the Nature Conservancy, but we do it on a local level. So where they might be getting 10,000 acres and protecting habitat for cougars, we're getting smaller acreages, like in the 100 to 600 acre plots that protect habitat for turtles and moose and bear and skinks and snakes. And there's lots of locally important species that are threatened or endangered. And one of the key things we seek to do is protect the ecosystems that are their home. And the species don't need to be threatened or endangered for us to care. A really good example is some of the iconic species in Muskoka that people who come here, I think, would find a great hole if we didn't have them. And one that comes to mind is the common loon. If we did not have natural shorelines on our lakes, we would have no loon nesting habitat, and therefore we would have no loons. And I can think of many, many people who would find it devastating to be in Muskoka without that loon call. The Bracebridge logo has a loon on it, and for a reason, because it is the iconic bird that the people of Bracebridge decided to identify with when they're trying to create an image for their town. So protecting riparian area, shoreline on our lakes, especially our big lakes, because they're the most under pressure, is a real challenge, but it's something the Conservancy is having some success with. And we're kind of on a roll. In the last 5-6 years, we've been able to acquire some major stretches of natural shoreline on our big lakes. In doing so, we're protecting habitat for those species that require access to the water, or water species that require access to land, fish habitat, It's a very lively area, as I'm sure you know. That first 20 feet of land next to the water and the first 20 feet of water next to the land is home to some 70% of all life on Earth. So it's a really important area for us to think about, and it's also one of those areas that's under the most pressure when you consider the land values and the emphasis on land development here and recreational properties being one of the main economic drivers here. There's a real tension that we don't view it as an and or. We are trying to seek balance, and we feel like there's lots of land to be protected, and we think we're doing a good job of it. And just in the past few years, we've been adding more and more of both the sort of. There's actually two kinds of property that really get our attention. I think there's demand for both of these types of conservation. One being this sort of littoral zone, riparian area, linear feet sort of along the lakes, but also these big back lot, sort of hundreds of acres, including wetlands and enough space for like moose to roam and you know, you have space for pine marten to breed and feed and do all the things. So there's a couple different angles we're taking every day, looking at different properties. There's lots of opportunity for conservation in Muskoka.
So tell us a little bit about how, because I think right now Muskoka Conservancy has about almost 7,000 acres of land that it's protecting. How does that become or get into the hands of the Conservancy? Like, so, you know, like that's a lot of land.
Yeah.
And when you look at the map of Muskoka, maybe not so much, but it certainly is, you know, pretty significant. And you know, that just, it falls into your hands. Tell us about how that actually happens generally.
So, yeah, you're right. It's a lot of, like for a single landowner, it's a fair amount of land. For, you know, the overall Muskoka, it's a small amount. But, you know, if we're doubling since 2020 and we aim to double again soon, we're on a good trend to increase that number. And the way we do it, there's multiple ways we do it. Often it's through the generosity of a landowner who simply, who may be at, you know, a stage in their life where they're trying to reflect on how they'd like to leave this world. And they think, geez, I've amassed this acreage of land and it's beautiful. Like, I love hiking on it. I have great memories of hiking on it with my grandkids or paddling by the shore. And I would like nothing better than, you know, when I leave this earth to leave that land protected. And so they'll get in contact with the Conservancy and we'll have some long conversations about their wishes. And we'll work with them to ensure that that land is protected in perpetuity. And that may happen through the donation of the ownership of the land. So then the Conservancy becomes the owner. And our mission, of course, is to protect that land forever. Or there's a tool called a conservation easement, which essentially that landowner who wants to protect their land will agree to register a conservation easement on the title of the land to the benefit of Muskoka Conservancy. So in other words, it creates a kind of ownership interest for the Conservancy that will, for perpetuity, protect that land from development, even though we don't own it. And
so that's transferable to a future owner?
Yeah, it's registered on title so that when the property changes hands, whether it stays in the family or goes outside of the family, that registered easement stays on the title. And we would then form a relationship with the next owner. And, you know, of course, you want it to be cooperative. You want them to be on board and excited about the conservation opportunity that they've purchased. And so, you know, there's some work involved to make sure they understand the easements and understand that it's legally binding, and that, there's limits to what they can do on the property because of this easement that's in place.
Yeah, I would say that if it's handed down through the family is very much aware of that easement. If it's a purchase, the new purchaser or new owner would be very much aware of the easement that's on there. So I think it's almost like-minded buyer. Like they have to, or like you're certainly not going to have someone that's going to buy it and be not respect the easement that's there.
Yeah, that's the ideal scenario. Is the person who buys that property is aware they buy it because they like to have their cottage be surrounded by 300 acres of protected land, and they love the idea of being in nature. They love the idea of having access to that nature and being somewhat buffered from their neighbors. By natural land. Like it's a real selling feature for a segment of the population that want that seclusion and want that natural experience. But not all of the properties are sold that way. Sometimes you get people come in who they buy the property because they liked the cottage or the view or whatever, and they didn't really even give a second thought to the conservation values. And then, there's a bit of an education process for us to go through with them. And I think we've been successful at bringing people along to understand that, okay, there's a duty of care here to watch that you protect the land that is, on title to be protected.
So some of the lands that the Conservancy manages, either owning or has some management role, is very passive in terms of use, and some of it may be a little bit less passive, where there might be some activities and things like that on the property. Maybe share a little bit about the different types of lands that you have and the uses that the Conservancy may have with those lands.
We have over 60 properties, and many of them are simply protected for their natural values. And some of the reasons for that is that they're home to many species at risk or endangered species, and to protect that habitat, it's just a place where limited human involvement is encouraged. So we do offer access to all of our properties through our Nature Quest series of guided hikes, so that if you sign up for one of those, there's no cost. You can go out to any of our properties with a guide, and you can see all of these lands. All you have to do is sign up and go on one of these guided trips. We do offer several properties that have trails that we actually actively maintain and are open to the public anytime you want to go there. Sometimes, we do try to keep parking fairly limited, because these properties we kind of like them to be in the sort of best kept secret category versus the, we don't necessarily want the Hardy Lake Provincial Park experience where there's 100 cars parked down the highway and people clamoring, because the primary objective of these properties is nature conservation. But offering places where people can hike are incredible, because people, in order to protect nature, or to want to protect nature, people need to understand it. And I think the more people understand nature, the more people spend time in nature, the more they love it, the more they actually build a fondness for things like the sound of frogs croaking, or sight of a beaver swimming across a pond, or a hawk coming in to light on a branch overlooking a wetland. There's and even just circling ducks, and watching migrating ducks come through. For a long time, I thought mallards were the only duck. I don't know about you.
Daffy?
yeah, daffy duck. But, if you spend enough time around wetlands, especially in the spring, this time of year, you see that there's ducks coming through. Yeah. They're only here for a little while, and then they move north. Yeah. You might see them again in the fall on the way south, but you need to spend the time in nature to see them. Otherwise, you might only think there's mallards or mergansers or something, some of the things that hang around locally. So, we want to offer access to nature for people which is why we offer these properties. Like a good example is the Upjohn Nature Reserve. It's just 10 minutes north of Bracebridge. We've developed some looping trails so people, they're not, it's a 150-acre property. So it's not epic hiking, but it's a great place to go with the family. It's a great place to walk along the shore of a wetland. If you're a photographer, it's a great place to do some birding and see if you can capture some pictures of birds. It's an active beaver, like the complex of wetlands is actively managed by beavers. So it changes over time, and you can watch a beaver build a dam. Some great stuff you can do with the kids.
And multiple seasons. It's not just
all seasons. Yeah. We do struggle a little bit with winter parking, and we've talked about that.
We have.
But people do go out on snowshoes in the winter, and it's a fantastic place to go in the winter because you can see all the animal tracks all around the closer you get to that wetland, the more animal tracks you see, which really underscores that point I made earlier about the riparian area and how life gravitates towards this edge between land and water. And it's so clear when you go out in the winter and you see, you're walking in the woods and like suddenly there's more animal tracks, and the closer you get to the edge of that wetland, it's just teeming with them. And you can see there's animals coming and going all along the shore and in and out of the forest and, in and out of the water and out onto the ice. And so it's a fantastic place to build an appreciation for nature, to help the next generation build an appreciation for nature. And our objective is to have these properties like the Upjohn Nature Reserve in Bracebridge accessible to population centers throughout Muskoka. So another example is the Silver Doe Nature Reserve in Gravenhurst. Very similar situation, just easy 10 minutes from town, from Gravenhurst, sort of at the end of a cul-de-sac with easement to access our property, and we're in the process of building some trails there. And we're going to try to have the same thing, some looping trails, so people can go out, mix it up. It's not huge, but it's really an incredible place to go, and you can go. Same thing, a complex of beaver ponds, wetlands, rock barrens, and people can go there, learn about nature firsthand. We'll put in some interpretive signage so people can, use them to kind of help do a self-guided tour and self-educate. And it's just another amazing experience, and it's the type of thing we want to do. We've got a property near Port Carling where we plan to do the same thing. We're always looking. We have some properties in Huntsville and looking to do something similar there. Another interesting Bracebridge property is Eileen Gowan, which if you're into paddling, which I know a lot of people are, there's several places you can launch your canoe. Or if you have access to the lake, good for you. But if you need to get out there, you can launch at George Road is a good place to launch, a tin boat or whatever boat you have or a canoe and paddle out to Eileen Gowan. There's a municipal park. This is a great example of cooperation between an NGO and the town. Is that you arrive at, what's the name of the park?
I think it's I thought it was Eileen Gowan Park, but anyway.
Okay, I think there's an actual name.
Could be,
but the municipal park has a dock and picnic tables and some facilities for the visiting public. And towards the back of that park, there's a trailhead that leads to the J.P. McVitie Nature Reserve, which is a couple hundred acres with a significant trail that's excellent hiking. It's well marked. It's a mix of forest, meadow, and there's like some really neat topography in there with some like rock ledges and some little wetlands, and so it's like a really fascinating place to go for a hike.
One of the things I wanted to just touch on, and you mentioned it early in some of your comments, is this is not about the conflict between development and conservation, right? I think you had described it as it's a question of conservation and development, right? They both can exist in the right kind of framework, right? With the right kind of kind of focus on things. And maybe just share some of your thoughts about, in a growing community. We'll use Bracebridge, for example, where, there is development that's happening. There is, the urbanization of the urban areas is continuing to happen. There's been a lot of focus and interest on the development community to infill on existing service land. And some people see that as a threat to, nature and things like that. And I get it. If a woodlot is, in the downtown core has been there for, ever and ever and ever, and then all of a sudden someone wants to build on it, that has some impacts. But maybe just share some of your thoughts about how, you can kind of shift the conversation or shift the focus a bit about how you can, where you see development happening in your community, but you can also be an advocate for conservation in your community as well.
Well, it is a challenge to achieve the balance, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm a member of this community and have been for a long time, and I know many, many people who make their living by providing services to cottagers and homeowners alike. I know many people who are contractors and build. I know that a big part of the economy in Bracebridge and Muskoka in general depends on a certain amount of development. I like to see it balanced. I'm a proponent of nature conservation, so how do you find that balance? And to me, when you look at the urban areas that are designated throughout Muskoka, and there's community boundaries around all of those, whether it's in Baysville or Bracebridge or Huntsville or Milford Bay, there are areas designated for home building and development and business. And from what I understand, there's adequate space for all of that for decades already designated. So from a nature conservation perspective, we encourage people to do their developments in the areas that are designated for development. Like, it just is logical. And like you said, that can be challenging when decades ago, like in the 90s or earlier, an area was designated that looks a heck of a lot like a big natural open space with wetlands and views and mature forest that happens to be within the urban area. That is a major challenge. It's not easy to resolve, as you know.
Exactly.
But I think, I would encourage everybody to think carefully about the bigger picture, which is, you do need to direct, places for people to live and jobs in the economy to somewhere. And there is designated space for that. So I think probably balance to some degree looks like what can we build in the building areas so that we can protect the areas outside of the building area.
Exactly.
And that's where Muskoka Conservancy is focused is, we don't get ourselves twisted in a knot over what's happening in the urban areas. I think a lot of people would like us to, but we're not getting involved in those planning battles because we are spending all of our energy trying to protect land where we can get the biggest patches and the best bang for our buck, and that is outside the urban area. It's not banging the table in planning fights and going to the tribunals and all that. It is actually taking our attention and focusing it on what we can do, and that is protect land. We're good at it. It's our focus, and as long as we stay focused on protecting land, we've shown year after year we're protecting thousands of acres every year. And if we stay focused, I think that can continue to the ultimate benefit of everybody in Muskoka. And then people will still have jobs and the economy will thrive because there's space for that too.
Wanted to shift a bit and talk about some of the education aspects of the Conservancy, programming aspects. You did mention a bit about, guided trail tours or guided trail walks through some of the properties that you have. But there's also some other kind of aspects of, getting people close to nature and understanding, this is a red-bellied salamander, if there's such a thing or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so we have a conservation manager named Amanda Porter, and she's great at her job. She spearheaded a snake monitoring program a few years ago that continues, and it's been a real source of learning and joy for a lot of people to go out with her at the crack of dawn. And she's found ways to attract snakes to these places just so they can be counted, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing is they put down these boards in areas they think they can attract snakes to, and they go out on a schedule and they lift the boards and count the snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's short term, it's temporary. It's not meant to disrupt the lives of the snakes. It's just a way of enumerating the varieties and quantities of snakes on a given property, and it can be pretty surprising.
I'm sure.
What they come up with, and so that's by volunteer. If you want to volunteer at the Conservancy and get involved in snake monitoring, it's an excellent way to go out and have fun with the group, but also do some productive work. So there's that. In the past, we've had similar programs with salamanders, doing very similar counting with salamanders near vernal pools. Vernal pools being the small wetlands that you see sort of forming this time of year, puddles in the forest, basically.
They may dry up in the summertime.
They dry up in the summer, but right now through spring, they're a really important breeding habitat for salamanders and other sort of base of the food chain type critters.
Yeah.
So we're very protective of those also, but also a great learning place. Like if you go out to one of our wetlands with your kids and you can find these vernal pools and use them as a teaching tool for your own family. We did for years have a program called Little Sprouts Eco Club, which was an amazing volunteer-run organization that just encouraged kids to learn about the environment and programs, even just things like recycling and things about like what happens to garbage when we throw it out, and like just some of these curious questions that kids tend to ask that are environmentally focused. Today they'd be wondering about flooding probably, as it pours rain for the third day in a row.
Exactly.
And they watch they're coming home from school and they see, wow, look at the river. And it's really flowing and it's really high, and they might have questions. And so that's the type of thing that program sought to engage children at that level, is that curiosity level. That program's taking a little breather right now as we've had a bit of a leadership change there. We're hoping to re-engage with that soon. But a wonderful program run by Christina Hunter out of Gravenhurst for years, decades. Amazing program.
There's also opportunities. So I guess we're getting kind of close to the end of our time, but I just wanted to make sure that there's an opportunity to talk about, I'm not a landowner. I don't have a tract of land that would be something that the Conservancy would be interested in, but I want to be able to support. How can I do that? Can I provide a monetary donation? Can I provide time? Yeah. What is it that I can do?
There's a huge range of ways you can support Muskoka Conservancy and help us acquire and protect more land. So there's some really simple non-monetary things you can do, but there's also, of course, we need financial support. So you can become a monthly donor at any amount, like $5 a month, like for the price less than you pay probably for coffee. It's a significant contribution. Anything up to like thousands of dollars is welcome by us. We have the full range of people who support us, and we're thankful for the $5 a month donor right up to the tens of thousands and the hundreds of thousands of dollars we receive in donations. We're very thankful for every level of donor we have. So that can be monthly, a one-time donation. A lot of people, it's growing sort of as you get the sort of aging population, the stage of life people are in. Many people they're thinking about their annual tax plans, and they make a donation of securities every year as a way to offset. It's like a portfolio management tool for them, but it's also a way that they can support a local charity. Or a lot of people, they get to that point where they're thinking about their legacy and they're thinking about estate planning, and they might think about making a gift in their will that kind of makes a statement about what they stood for in life.
Exactly.
So those are some financial ways that people could help, but there's many non-monetary ways people can help too. And whether that's volunteering your time and energy or skills, really important. We're very volunteer-centric organization. We do have staff, but we depend greatly on volunteers to sort of punch above our weight. Simple things like when you're on Facebook, just like, share, say nice things. If you see a pile-on, maybe like offer some perspective. Like we all know social media can sometimes go a little bit sideways. If you see that, like offer up a positive suggestion. It's not a bad idea. We like that. And if you're at a party or in a group, or you've seen this, you're probably standing around after a council meeting, and somebody will bring up that dam development across town or whatever, and it'll suddenly be everybody complaining about this or that. Maybe turn that conversation towards solutions, and maybe offer up that, hey, there are some organizations in town or in Muskoka that are offering solutions. I know of one. It's Muskoka Conservancy, and they're busy trying to protect nature. Let's try to focus on some of the solutions rather than the problems all the time. So those are all like little things.
Absolutely. And I think it's, what you've kind of encapsulated there is that there's an opportunity for anybody and everybody, young and old, to be involved with the Conservancy.
Exactly.
And that's exciting. If I want to find out more information, I'm going to go to
www.muskokaconservancy.org.
Okay.
.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there you'll find all the programming. It'll talk about the lands, the opportunities that there might be for some trail walks. And I would encourage you to join up and sign up for the newsletter that the Conservancy has as well.
Thanks, Rick. Can I add one thing?
Go ahead.
Just apropos to the weather outside. It's been raining for several days on end. The snow is melting. The river's rising. The riverbanks tend to get soft and erode, and they can be dangerous next to the river and to the shorelines. I'm sure there's some interest in protecting assets along the shoreline. In that vein, I just want to point out that if we protect our wetlands in Muskoka, that is going to slow down the flow of water over land. It's going to slow down the flow of water into the rivers and lakes and protect our assets along the shoreline from damage due to flooding. And it's also going to protect our water quality overall in Muskoka. Two very important things. And when we look outside and see what's happening, I just want to remind people that protecting wetlands is a really important part of protecting what we love about Muskoka.
Oh, that's a great final thought to leave us with. Scott, I wanted to thank you for joining Abridged and appreciate the work that you're doing and your team is doing, and also appreciate our friendship and look forward to having you again on another opportunity to talk about everything Muskoka Conservancy. So thanks for the time.
Thanks, Rick. Really appreciate it.
That's a wrap on this episode of Abridged. Thanks to my guests for taking the time to join me today. This podcast was produced in the Dr. Ted Joe recording studio at the Colson Family Bracebridge Library. Thanks for listening. And be sure to join me on our next episode where we talk everything Bracebridge.
This podcast was produced by North Star Networks, the guiding light for progressive media.